Hello everybody, CritCrab here with another story, this one about a TPK, or Total Party Kill. Unlike most TPKs though, this one was absolutely beautiful. Roll post. A little backstory on the players and their characters for this upcoming piece of pure goodness. Me. I've been playing pen and paper games for decades and decided for this game to be a half-orc barbarian who liked making sure the animals were always taken care of, no matter what. That meant walking beside the horse instead of riding it, pulling the wagon that the players rode around in instead of having the horse do it, using himself as bait instead of a familiar that would have just revived anyways. Basically, a friend to all magical critters. John. He has also been playing pen and paper games for decades alongside me. Best friend, and we share the same blood type, so there's that. He's playing an elf ranger who is the exiled son of an elvish king. However, only 2 sessions in, he has his memory wiped, falls in love with a barmaid that was basically the DM's way of giving us info, and decided to start dating her. Eventually, he marries her, and it leads to his character having a crisis of whether he wants his old memories back, as it might change how he feels about his wife. Jane. She's been a part of our group for the last decade, joined up when we were running All Flesh Must Be Eaten, and after she shoved a stick of dynamite up a zombie's butt, she has been tight with the group ever since. She's playing an elf fighter who is actually a bodyguard for John's character. Her character wants nothing more than to help John get his memory back, but realizes that he may be better off without it. She also has been having doubts about what her role is now, since she was a bodyguard to old John, and new John is a completely different person. Jack. Jane's younger brother who started playing with us once he finished with high school. Jack's character is a human rogue who is basically a mixture of Robin Hood and Santa Claus. He steals from the rich whenever he can, and basically gives 90% of it back to the poor kids who could use it. He also has a steadfast rule about not killing unless it's absolutely necessary, which makes his sneak attacks all the more thrilling since he doesn't go for them every single instance of combat. And Joe, the DM, also an avid fan of Harry Dresden, which isn't important to the story, but he'd appreciate me making sure you all knew that. He's been DMing most of our campaigns for the last 20 years. Everything from D&D to Pathfinder, and even some homebrew stuff involving mechs and schoolgirls. As in, the mechs were schoolgirls. The backstory for the campaign is that a portal had opened up and was spewing forth demons and eldritch horrors and such all across the land. The portal itself would also disappear and reappear at random spots and at random times along the campaign. This meant that we could be in the middle of putting on a play for the local orphans, something that we did, and suddenly the portal would appear over the stage and demons would spew out and we would have to fight them all while wearing silly costumes and fake beards. The one behind all of this was a Dracolich by the name of Barax, who seeked to unleash the Eldritch Dragon, kill it, and then take over its body. For those who don't know about Dracoliches, they're dragons who manage to achieve lichdom, and can possess any dead reptilian body, from a small gecko all the way up to a chromatic dragon if it wanted. But Barax wanted the most powerful dragon as its body, and he was willing to put the fate of the world at risk to get it. Our party joined up to stop Barax for different reasons. My character didn't want any more animals getting hurt in the process of these portals being opened, and he saw liches as an affront to nature to begin with. Let the dead stay dead, you know? John's original motive was that if he stopped Barax, he could gain favor back and rejoin his family in his kingdom. But after losing his memory and falling in love with the barmaid, he wanted to stop Barax because if the world was in danger, then his beloved was. Jane's reasoning was that she had to protect John, but then it was revealed that her main reason was that when she was younger, she had witnessed a lich kill her parents in front of her, and didn't want any other child to go through that type of pain. And lastly, Jack. Jack figured that even if the Dracolich was undead, it was still a dragon, and thus it should have some good loot, as dragons are ones who tend to hoard that stuff. With our reasons for saving the world set, we moved on with our adventure. The first couple of sessions involved us actively hunting down the portals and stopping the demons as they came. After that, though, we began to actually explore social scenes with a passion, as Joe always made sure that any NPCs that he made had at least a paragraph worth of backstory and a welcoming attitude to our characters. We at one point managed to help turn an old, run-down tavern back into a thriving spot that would bring business back into a poor town. Another time, we came across poachers and hunters who were actively killing more than they needed to. My barbarian was ready to exact some revenge when it's revealed that the hunters are only doing this so that the pack of feral trolls roaming the forest will leave after they don't have enough food for them to eat. One of the saddest things to happen was when we came across a lost child in the forest and decided to take her along with us until we could find some way to find her a new home. In the middle of the night, she had been lured off again by a nefarious forest spirit. And by the time our group found her and a bunch of other children, they had all been drained of their life force. Something Joe was sad to do, but felt he needed to do, as we had been told that urgency was important. And we got hung up after Jack's rogue failed a charisma check to ask the forest spirit to return the children. Jack was the most hung up over this, as he feels it's his fault entirely that they couldn't save the girl or other children. The point I'm making is that our group had fleshed out characters and we had fun sessions where we would go the entire time and not even get into combat. Then we arrived near the end of the story. Joe even told us that the end was fast approaching and we confronted Barax at his fortress that had been displaced to another dimension. We fought through undead, we managed to avoid many traps, and we even freed a goblin NPC that had been sort of like Barax's little sniveling minion the entire campaign. Simple because he begged us to free him, and we were all nice enough to do so. The time finally came that we confronted Barax. He was so close to finally summoning forth the Eldritch Dragon that part of the creature's giant eye was taking up the whole space of the portal. We attacked with everything we had. Jack backstabbed it with a nat 20 and rolled max damage. It was beautiful. John and Jane managed to pin Barax down with arrows and magically enchanted grappling hooks that Jane had bought specifically for this moment, as whenever she clapped her hands, the hooks would increase their weight tenfold. And I even managed to push the Eldritch Dragon's eye back further into the portal after rolling a nat 20 myself. Soon we managed to close the portal thanks in part to the goblin NPC coming back and casting the spell he'd seen Barax cast 100 times. A little thank you from someone who had once been our enemy. Barax was pinned, and we finally went for the coup de grace. We smashed his skull in, and his soul tried returning to his phylactery. Only thing was that Jack had swiped it just before arriving at the final fight. With Barax now in this physical object, we dropped it inside a bag of holding. Then we called forth a djinn that we'd obtained back when Jane and Jack ended up falling into a long-forgotten cavern. This was actually because me and John were sick that week and Joe decided to let Jane and Jack have their own adventure. We had one wish left and we decided to use it the way we had discussed. We handed the djinn the bag of holding and wished that the djinn would return to his lamp. This caused a bit of a problem that we weren't expecting. You see, when you place a bag of holding inside another bag of holding, it causes a portal to the astral plane to open and destroy both items. Instead of killing Barax, though, it simply released his soul into the astral plane, where Gilgium's dead body was floating around. For those who don't know, Gilgium is a sworn enemy of Tiamat and a powerful demigod dragon. Joe sort of had to pause there, as he realized as soon as we did that we may have stopped Barax from getting the Eldritch Dragon, but he was now able to obtain the body of a demigod. To his credit, Joe gave us one turn to decide what we're doing here, as nobody was expecting this to happen. We all realized that if Barax was allowed to venture forward, he would find Gilgium's body and take it over. And that much power was scary to think of. We talked, we discussed maybe trying to destroy the phylactery, but we'd known that this was impossible due to wards and the fact that it was made of freaking diamonds. Even if we had the power, we were terrified that it would take too long and Barax would achieve his goals. We thought of pulling Barax back from the astral plane, but none of us were magic users and such a thing had never been considered needed. So we all just sat there at the table, stumped on what to do and fearing we may have actually failed the campaign. That is, until John spoke up. "I'll go in after him," he said somberly. "If I can kill his soul in the astral plane, then he'll be dead for good." I wanted to argue with him on this, but nothing I could think of was an actual alternative. We were stumped, and the only way to save the world was for someone else to go in after Barax and die with him. None of us had the capabilities to travel back, and we would be stuck there at best and dead at worst. After a few seconds, Jack sighed. "Guess I'm coming in with you then. Always wanted to see what kind of loot the astral plane has to offer." John tried arguing that he didn't need to when Jane cut in. "I'll come along too. I swore that I would protect you no matter the obstacle. And besides, you're my friend." It didn't take me but a few seconds to come to my own decision. We started this together. Guess it's only right we end it together. And so we leapt into the astral plane. And while I would like to say that we got another epic round of combat and got the chance to make our escape through some contrived means, Joe decided that the quest would end like this. The four of you, true companions and honest folk through and through, jump through the portal and chase after Barax. The portal closes behind you, cutting you off from returning. The phylactery is the only object left in the room, and for a few moments nothing happens. Then, in one ear-splitting shriek, the diamond-carved phylactery for Barax cracks in two, falling to the ground before returning to dust and blowing away in the wind. The world is saved. Nobody would remember the barbarian who saved a horse from drowning or helped rescue a lost dog in the middle of the night, all because a little girl asked him to with tears in her eyes. Few would remember the elf who showed up one day with his memory being lost, falling in love with the pretty girl at the bar who seemed to be infatuated with the pointy-eared dork. Hardly any could tell you that the female elf loved carving little figures out of wood for children as she and her companions passed from town to town, or that she had a lovely singing voice. And the tales of the noble thief simply became stories that people would tell their children at night, hoping that they would emulate his good deeds and selflessness. But if you go up to a certain mountain, you'll find an old fortress, fallen apart and a shell of its former self. Inside the fortress, you'll find a room where a great battle took place, where four good people stood against the manifestation of evil. In that room, you'll find 4 stones lined up together, each with the name of someone you don't know, and of their deeds that you don't remember. In front of those stones is a simple plaque, and on that plaque, scribbled in the hardly legible writings of the stumbling hands of a small green goblin, are 4 simple words. They loved you all. Anyone got a tissue? Here goes D&D making me cry again, damn it! But seriously, it's moments like these that really define TRPGs that you cannot get from movies or video games. This ending wasn't premeditated, foreshadowed, or even speculated. It was a real, genuine, human interaction. No script, and no audience to please or cater to. And it was damn beautiful, damn it. OP, if you're watching this, you and your friends are amazing. Thanks for sharing and keep having a great time. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video, please do leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more stories just like this one. Till next time.